that's not the case. That you asked me a personal question, right? Is that what you believe? But there are people out there that believe, even in spite of seeing a guy say, "I can't breathe," that the police did nothing wrong.
The thing is, prior to belief, there must be acceptance prior to belief. If you don't have that acceptance, you're not going to have the belief.
But do you get what I'm saying? There's still people out there, despite whatever evidence, they're going to believe one thing or not to believe another thing, and that's...
Yeah.
It's because they're not accepting it.
Yeah, because they're suppressing it. That's why they're not accepting it.
Right. What Roy was saying. You're suppressing a belief in God or not.
Right.
No, you're... Oh, for... Oh.
I'm sorry, Shadow.
If you say rejecting, I might even be fine with that, but suppressing?
Yeah, it's suppressing. You can't do anything more with, they'll say, when you're presented with the truth, all you can do is profess it or suppress it. That's all you can do.
Okay, it has been shown to me in a way that I can know for certain that there is no God or gods.
That's the point, Shadow. That's the point. Once you're presented with the truth, you only have two choices. Either profess it.
The truth where's the truth? Obviously, no one said it to him yet.
Okay.
He's open. He's open. He is open to it.
We're talking about
I spent
choosing
the majority of my life looking for that truth. I was given my answer.
It's already there. See,
how do you know?
Suppressed it so much that you don't even know how to.
How can you say that about? How can you say that about him? You don't know him. You don't know his experience.
Okay, wait a second. You're making a claim that I don't know, but I'm telling you I know and you don't? That doesn't make any sense.
I know. I'm saying that he might know the path of his life better than you to say that he knows something he's suppressing.
I mean, I've stated this stuff before. I've had hangouts and
it's real simple. It goes like this. It goes like this.
It's not suppression.
Okay, that's why you're saying it, is because you're in denial. Okay, look, it can't get any simpler than this. When you are presented with the truth, I don't care if you're 5 or 55.
Yeah, I'll be
you have two choices. You either profess the truth or you suppress the truth. That's it.
So then you're suppressing the non-existence of God, then.
You're a bad man, Roy.
See, what you just said is not what I said. I said when you're presented the truth. Okay?
And what he just said.
He's implying that you've been presented the truth.
You can't suppress a lie. You only suppress the truth.
But I'm not suppressing a lie. I'm not revealing or suppressing a lie. I'm stating the truth as it was revealed to me. Now, when I went out searching to figure out if there was a God, what this God thing was, if one of them even existed, I went out there with a bias in favor of the notion, not against.
Shadow, you can't go looking for God. God comes looking for you. Don't you understand that?
Oh, he's done a pretty poor job, really.
So God has chosen for Shadow to go to hell.
No, we make that choice. If we go to hell, we choose.
God can't find.
Actually, the way I parsed
God is supposed to find him.
The way I parsed this out quite some time ago is that if there is a God, and he's gone through all this trouble to show me that he doesn't exist, then clearly he has some other task for me here. Potentially, in fact, in the place of the Hasatan,
you started off with if there is a God. You already know
may grow in their relationship with him.
You started off incorrectly.
What?
Who made the atheist?
Yeah,
Who guides his mouth? Who makes him speak? Who made the atheist?
The atheist.
Who made the atheist?
There is no such thing as an atheist. They just think there is.
And this is where we run into our usual...
Now he doesn't believe... Well, now we have the non-belief in Shadow.
Next it'll be existence.
Okay, I think the good thing...
I might actually agree with something that Lucifer said earlier. It might actually be both. But for more than that...
The echo's not me this time.
Still a mean echo, guys, and it's not Shadow, exactly.
No, it's better now. I guess I don't want to go too far down this path because I was trying to find some place where we agree, and it sounded to me a lot to be like what Lucifer had to say. It's a little bit of both.
Thank you. I think
Both what? Both what?
That there's some things that you don't choose, and there's some aspects that's not choice in belief, and there's some aspects that are.
Okay, you have to start. You can't. So start with this premise. When you hear the truth, you only have two choices: profess or suppress. Do you agree with that?
No, you can accept or reject.
There's a third way as
You
well.
can't reject.
There is a third way.
You can't reject the truth. It's still the truth. All you can do is suppress it.
You can absolutely reject it.
So
Yeah,
I don't.
you
Okay,
can
but I don't
also-
understand that.
you
So
can
what does
need-
that
you
mean?
can-
When you reject the
Roy,
truth, what are you
yeah,
doing?
Roy, you can neither reject nor accept it, and wait for further information.
That's true too.
No, there's no way you can do that. No, don't ever come to me with middle of the roadness. That won't work. It's not. No.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
not saying
Roy.
it's black and white, but I
By
agree with you.
default, listen.
Roy,
by
you're in
default,
denial, Roy. You're in
make
denial.
no choice.
Binary
Listen,
world.
You're suppressing the truth, Roy. You're suppressing
Oh,
the truth.
you beat me to it,
Listen,
John.
listen. If you make no choice, you're against.
Are you calling him unrighteous? Had to troll. Had to. That it was there on the floor waiting.
It's very simple, Roy. Don't suppress the truth you hear. It's okay.
And you can know things. I think that's also important. There are things you can know, and at that point you can't know.
There's also kind of an intuitive knowing. And this was one thing that was a problem for me when I was growing up in my younger years, because people would approach me with these notions of things like God and this and that, and intuitively I knew that they were wrong. I knew that this wasn't right. But at the same point, everyone else believed this, so I tried my hardest to believe it, and it still didn't feel right. And then it came to the point, going in and starting the religious studies things as a young child, and still there was a wrongness. So I'd ask questions based upon how I intuitively saw these things, and they'd be like, no, the book says this, the book says that, and I'm like, but that's not the understanding that I have. This intuitive knowingness was contrary to that. So I went to try and figure out if there is some kind of God thing. What is it? And I spent a good portion of my life trying to answer that question, and I did finally get an answer, and there just isn't one. And that was the end result of my search. But even more so than that, even the notion of a God is pretty incoherent to me. So
The Lord says in the end days, which we're in the end times.
The book says, you mean?
Men,
His
no God.
book.
No God. Men and women will take the truth and turn it into a lie, and take a lie and turn it into the truth.
But
And
that
we see that
intuitive
happening
knowingness, yet that intuitive knowingness that I was born with contradicts everything you just said.
What if he was told nothing but bullshit about God all his life? And what if nobody could speak clear enough to get through that bullshit? Because there's a lot of bullshit in religion. Excuse my
No,
friend.
there is no if. God can get through anything. It doesn't matter.
Can't get through here.
You don't understand. If for God to be God, he can get through anything. It doesn't matter how brainwashed
Then he's
someone
not
was
God.
attempted to be.
Fail. So
It doesn't matter. God can get through anything.
If that's the case, and that's a prerequisite of God, then that God cannot exist because he can't get through here.
Okay, I think there's another option. It's that if God can get through anything, and if we're assuming that there's been this mountain of bullshit that no one's been able to speak through, then that means God never attempted.
Or God's not done. The man's not dead. And this is what I was going to ask you, Shadow. Did you ever go to the rabbis in your search? Seriously.
Actually, I didn't directly go to the rabbis. I did have a number of Jewish friends, including a Jewish girlfriend, as my journey was traveling onward. Now, the earliest part of my journey, I've just started talking about over the course of the first year or so, because I tried to force myself to believe. And it went a very horrible way, because as I'm trying to force myself to believe in God, my mother kept trying to tell me that I was this evil little bastard. So the evil little bastard I became. And we're talking to the point of starting a small death cult, sacrificing small animals, the whole 9 yards. Thankfully, I got hospitalized for that. I got better.
Good.
By the time I was about done with the hospitalization, psych wards, blah, 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 all this fun stuff, and in residential school, I started falling for this girl, and we got together a few times, and she was a born again and tried to convert me to that. And I tried. I really tried to accept it. It was, I think at this point I'd have to say it's contrary to my nature. It was against my intuitions. And she gave me the whole, you know, sit there and kneel down and open up your heart to the Lord, and with all earnesty ask, and he will, you know, that whole shtick. You'll hear the knocking at the door. I said, okay, I'll try it. So I got off the phone with her after this conversation. I went to my room and I knelt down, got into a little bit of a slight meditative state, and I opened up myself. I let go of the ego. I let go of all my preconceived notions. And instead of even calling it by name or any of this other stuff, I called out, if there is something out there that could rightfully be referred to as a God, whatever you may be, tell me. You know. And the sensation that came after that was fascinating. And this is something that I wasn't planning on really getting into at this point, but I will anyway. In that moment, it was the most both bizarre and incredible feeling. It was like, in that split second, I had all the knowledge that could be had around me. And all I had to do was reach out and grab that one piece that I wanted. And I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't understand most of it. But it was there, like it was just flowing past me. And I reached out and I grabbed that bit of knowledge and pulled it back to me. And what I pulled back to me was the understanding that all religions are wrong. And I was like, wow. And I mean, I literally heard the knock at the door. I got out of there. I'm like, holy crap. I went and I said, went to everyone else in the house. I'm like, did you hear a knock? And they're like, no. I'm like, it was real then. Cool. They're like, what do you mean? I just said I didn't know. So I go back. I call her on the phone. I'm like, yeah, it's fucking incredible. I heard the knock. She's like, you're not supposed to really hear the knock. I said, but I did. Like, okay, I don't know what that means. And I said, I got this really weird, like, I guess revelation with it. She goes, really? What was it? I said, all religions are wrong. And she hung up the phone. And from that point on, that's when my journey started, around about the age of roughly 17, 18. And I spent a couple decades trying to figure out what the hell that meant.
And you've been looking at religions, you haven't found one yet that works.
But not only that, but I ended up creating, and basically for all intents and purposes, creating and destroying my own theologies. Because everything that seemed to work somewhat, I'd hold on to, and I'd keep grabbing more stuff and grabbing it in there, throwing away what didn't work. I spent 20 years doing this, and then I let go of all of it. And I said, these are all dogmas. Let go of them all, and just accept that what is, and it wasn't there.
It's not too dissimilar to Buddha and Abraham, because both of them said all religions are wrong. Abraham smashed it, every god he got his hands on in his father's, except for the one to make a point, but that's a whole different thing.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Same thing with Buddha. He said, you know, all your gods are wrong. All your religions are all the stuff you're doing is wrong.
Yeah. Now, in my case, that's what I ended up
with. Asked God to show you something, and he came back with that. I believe that happened. I believe that.
Yeah. But here's the thing is, if there is something out there, because I don't believe in God. I do believe in the notion of the divine. And that's something a little bit different. I have a whole stack of other beliefs, which I'm planning on getting to and actually sitting down with some people and seeing if I can be reclassified potentially in the next couple months. Or actually, so hopefully sometime next month, I'm hoping. But I have this notion of the divine, and I could say that I think there's something greater. But at the same point, I think we're all part of it trying to figure out what it is. I don't think it's sentient yet. I don't think it's self-aware yet. I think we're part of it trying to get to that point. I think on some levels we're making God. And this is something I can't let go of. It's just there.
I've had that thought before too. That actually, that's what the evolving universe is about.
I mean, I can't let go of this. Now, if you're going to sit there and hang the word God on it, well, it's not sentient. It's not self-aware. How does that qualify as any coherent definition of a God?
That's closer to the Jewish God than anyone out there.
Thank you. Thank you. But this is the thing. So whenever somebody says, you know God, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I know not God. If this thing will end up getting to the point that it could be rightfully called a God, fine, whatever it ends up being. But right now, it's not there. And this is why I say it'll take all of us working together to figure out what it is. Because it's not anything that we think it is. And the moment you try to say what you think it is, you're freaking wrong. And I can't assign Yahweh to this. I can't assign the Bible to this. I can't assign any human notion of what could be the divine to this. So please, tell me that I know that God exists when this is not anything that anyone could define it as a God, and the moment you hang that word on it, it is not. Now please, once again, Roy, I welcome you to tell me that I don't understand anything about the spiritual.
You might be helping the wifey. You just made my day.
Well, what's interesting to me from what you said is that it could very well be a God, but right now it's not there. So what you're showing is that based on the information that you have or the evidence as you understand it today, God is whatever you have information to believe he is right now. So with further revelation, God could become something else. Or
Well,
God
no. More so, it's not a matter of that. It's a matter that what this God thing isn't what we think it is. It's something different, something that we can't even comprehend, and it's not something we can define. And even hanging the word God on it is wrong because it's not self-aware. It's not. There's no reason. It doesn't show any sentience. It's just there. It's like this undercurrent of reality, and what is it? We can't even quantify that.
Now then, would you say that this divinity, this divine thing, created you or the universe or whatever it is?
I consider us to be, and this is where we get into the pseudo-wooish stuff, and I can't help it, but this is something I came onto in my own time, and then later found out there are other people with similar beliefs. So forgive me that one, but I have to say I came to this on my own, then found out there are other people with similar beliefs. And that accounts for almost everything I'm saying, quite frankly. But the thing is, it's the easiest way to say, if you're... Good, I'm going to have to go knee deep. I'm going to have to go fucking balls deep into this. Hang on. Okay, there's an area that I refer to as being the well of souls. This is simply a construct of the mind in terms of how we understand things when we're going on a spiritual journey. And the way that I was envisioned it is you basically have a floor. And up from there you have these walls going up. And in those walls you can see the images of all those that have come before and all those that have gone. Now that which you were gets washed away before you return. For your next time around. All the knowledge that you gain, all the experience you gain is brought back to that source and helps that source become greater, to learn, to adapt, to eventually someday become fully self-aware. Right now I regard it as partially self-aware but not fully. And we are basically fragments of this, whatever you want to call it, there is no word, that have come down to try and experience and understand itself through us.
Okay, so I would just say that what you're saying is that as a human, you are more self-aware than this divinity itself.
Yeah. But at the same point, we're more self-aware of it. But it's think of trying to build a person out of individual cells. You can almost equate it to that. That until all those cells have sit there and formed and it's finished reaching the maturation and it's formed to a certain level, it's not there yet.
Well, that gets into it.
In Judaism, it would be very similar to what you're saying, because it's not that God is necessarily whole or complete, but we aren't at that point to get a clear picture, if you will.
Yeah.
So when you say that, God's not there yet, well, it would be like you're not there yet too. You'd have to include yourself in that. But a lot of what you say is, wow. I just might have found the evidence you need.
I did. Well, the thing is, I was walking the shamanic path and I keep saying almost 20 years. Now, truth be known, I found a spot on that pathway that I was comfortable with. It's a crossroads. It's a significant crossroads. And I said, okay, I got the answers I was looking for. I don't know what to ask next. So I sat down there, and technically I'm still there on a lot of levels. And if I were to bother to count the time that I've been sitting on my ass, it'd be 28 years.
Can I give you some advice, Heathen? Would you take it?
Sure, take it.
Okay. This is two parts. The first part is, the more definitions you have and labels you have for this thing, the smaller of the picture you're looking at.
Yeah, and that's why I keep away from that.
Yeah,
generally. Go ahead.
Yeah, you interrupted my brain.
Sorry.
And Yeah, no, I just lost the second part.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The more labels you put on this thing, the smaller the picture becomes.
I'm just glad to know that Satan is also human. Oh, sorry.
He's got it.
Oh yeah, I have a body now.
Hmm.
But I just remembered it. I don't want to forget it. And the closer you get to understanding it, the less you will be able to describe to other people.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's really insightful.
It's actually pretty accurate too. Now things like it doesn't seem to be. It's not sentient yet. You know, it can't communicate. It has no way to do that right now. Not really, other than, you know, vague impressions at best. So there's something there, but yeah, the moment you try to assign anything, it's almost the notion of accepting that what is, and stop pretending that it's God. Stop pretending you know what it is. Just throw all that garbage away and just simply accept what is. And yes, that's kind of a Buddhist concept, and I found out that after learning something about Buddhism. But I'd come to that notion long before that. And this is where I get frustrated. I didn't study Buddhism. I ignored it completely. And then a few years ago, somebody's like, oh, that's a Buddhist concept. I'm like, damn it, stop that. That's a Buddhist concept. So I refer to myself somewhat jokingly as in the unintended Buddha.
Buddhist, sorry.
No, that's actually referring to it's referred to as the Buddha mind, that we are all Buddha.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's what that reference is.
No, when you talked about taking all the little cells and you don't get life until you put them all together or something like that.
Kind of, and it's a poor representation, but it's the best I get. I've got.
I understand, but even with something like that, there has to be intent at the beginning of the process. Especially from a theistic perspective, we wouldn't say that all this dirt and matter created life on its own. So because even when a person dies, everything that was there to make a living being is still there when the person is laying on the bed and they pass away. Everything, all the cells are still in the same configuration for life, but now this person is dead and they will immediately begin decomposing, and their enzymes inside of themselves are going to start breaking their body down and whatever. But so to talk about all the pieces is one thing, but even putting all the pieces into the right configuration is not enough to get you to the next level. Like, somebody has to intend that life will be here. So when you're talking about this divinity, we're trying to self-actualize through the human experience, and we are more self-aware than that divine thing. I think that's a backwards way of looking at it. I don't think that the creation or the result could be more complex or more intricate than the what created it or the cause of it. So I think that'd
be from the theistic perspective, which I'm not taking this from. When I was dealing with this, I decided to throw away all perspectives and just accept whatever I find at the end of the road.
Then theists do the same thing. When people have their experiences with God over and over again, or from the Bible, or from what they see, and there's confirmations in reality and in the Bible, or whatever it might be, they themselves are on the other side of the spectrum from where you are because of what they know as well. So to say that God is or isn't something, of course, it's just your view.
And I want to say one more thing, because I think it's unfair for me to say that and not give the warning that goes along with it. The closer you get to it, the more you will cry havoc, and the more frustration you will feel with your inability to express it. And so at a certain point, you need to learn to be satisfied with what you have. Because the human eyes are always so much bigger than their stomach.
It's part of why I've been sitting in this spot in the road for as long as I have. The main questions I was asking, I got each of them answered.
And the other scary thing about that perspective is that whatever has created us has not revealed itself to us. From the biblical perspective, the Creator, the being that we all come from, has given us the information enough to know that He is, or what His desires are, or to communicate in some way that he or it or whatever is what it is. And so from the biblical perspective, God has revealed Himself to us. So the idea that we would have to wait around and search and figure out and wonder about what could this being possibly be? How does it work? And just a force or a source of all things? Or so that's the other side of the spectrum as well. God has revealed himself.
Now, you can, the thing is, you can go down that road. Now, prior to, I keep referring to the end of my road. Now, I should just say the crossroads where I stopped with, where I was content with what I had found, where I was content with the answers that I'd gotten because they're true to me. Now, whether they're we'll just say the end of that proverbial road of discovery for somebody else, they are not to walk my road. I don't want people to walk my road. I want people to come to their own truth pertaining to this, because I don't think one person's truth is enough. Now, I, of course, as I said, no theological framework here, because no theo. It's not what it is, and trying to categorize it is meaningless. Now, in terms of what you just expressed in terms of a theological framework, yeah, I may have gone on, during my many journeys, I may have encountered something that fits that mold. And all it does is sits around and eats faith. It's not a God.
But you're presenting the wall of souls or the well of souls and, you know, these other ideas. You believe that's how it works, is correct?
Now, mind you, this is an expression of how my mind is able to comprehend it. Mind you, but that's far from the only place I went on my journeys.
But
and the first several times I went there, I had no idea what it really was. And it wasn't until I let go of all the biases and all the dogmas that I came to understand it as it was.
But it's a belief system nonetheless. So you have a way of believing what life is, or supernatural, or whatever we want to say. And because yours is only held by you or a few, so what? You know, it's a system of belief, of understanding.
Well, the thing is, you can say it's a system of belief, or it's a system of understanding, or you can hang whatever terms you want. It's truth as it's been revealed to me. Now, I don't encourage people to walk my path. I encourage people to find their own way. But this is what was shown to me. And it's not consistent with any God notion. None whatsoever. So you can't say you can choose to believe in God when what's been shown to me isn't a God.
What has been shown to you then? If it's not a God, what is it?
Oh, good grief, you'd have to rewind.
No. I got the wall.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were there for that. Okay, I didn't know if you were here for that.
Okay, I didn't know that was the setup for where you ended. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? It's not sentient. It's not fully self-aware. It's learning from us. Is that a God? Would you rightfully call that a God? I think the moment you try to define it as a God, you're misrepresenting what the term classically means, and you're trying to define something that is beyond definition.
But you're making the claim that it's not sentient, or it's not this or that. I think her question is, what have you been shown to say that it isn't that? Like because you're saying at the same time, when we know more, we will know more about this divinity or this thing.
No, wait, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is each person, when they walk that road to, whether you want to call it spirituality or enlightenment, they're going to get their own answer, and I don't think that answer is going to be the same for everyone. Good night.
I'm not going to bed. Oh.
So then why would you say that God is not sentient? Could I come to the conclusion that he is?
Wait, keep in mind, I didn't, because I said it's not a God. Whatever it is, I don't think the word God suits it.
How can you say that? How is that different from saying it's not sentient or something else, or it's not this or it's not that?
It's not self-aware. It's not sentient. It just is.
My question for you would be is if you have any reverence for what you have found, and that's usually what I determine a God, something worthy of worship. And if that's not there, then I would say to you it is not a God.
No, it's not something to be worshipped. It's simply what is.
Then I would say then to you that is not a God.
And I'd agree.
But that's what Yahweh means. He is the I am. Literally, he's saying I am what I am. I am existence. I am being. That is what God the God of the Bible is claiming to be. And then
they start attributing all these qualities to it and claiming that it's God instead of something that simply is.
And that it is able to say I am, and that it is able to directly communicate to man. And Shadow doesn't seem to have seen that.
No. The only thing you get is just, and the thing is, once I let go of everything, and I almost said you, and that's not you. It's my path, not yours. I want everyone else to find their own answers. I want them to, if they can find them independently, I think that's great. Then we can sit down, compare notes, and see if we agree on anything. But I don't want people to follow my path, because what's the point then? Then I learn nothing from somebody else's experience, and that's useless. I mean, if the idea is to basically, learn and experience and do what you can and try to be the best person you can, because we are, trying to help this thing get to this point of sentience, this point of full self-awareness. What we bring back to it, we want to bring back the best of us so that it will be the best it can become. If that makes sense to you.
Not at all. Helping the deity become itself.
I wouldn't expect you to understand it from a theological framework. Yeah. It doesn't fit into any theological framework. It doesn't fit the definition of a god. It's just there.
You are God having a shadow experience.
I wouldn't go there either. I don't think that's appropriate either. But I get the joke, though.
And I think it's fair to say, Shadow Heathen might agree with it, when you pick up a book and say that this is how it is, you've stopped. And that's the end. You're not going any farther.
Yeah, I had to throw away all the books, all the supposed great wisdom. Oh, sorry, James.
Oh, okay. Well, just let's say for a second, God is a God, or he does exist, or the divine thing that you're talking about. Let's say they did write a book about what they were for man, right? Would that be okay? Would it stop then? Of course it stops, because you've been given a definition or something to work from, and that there's only so many pages in the book, unless the deity continues to give you another page every single day forever. But if he just says, here's what I want you to communicate about me, and he tells people to write this down, and he says, this is all I need you to know right now.
But
if he did that,
the thing is, whenever I hear somebody talking about this Yahweh or any of these other God notions, I remember this one specific journey following a river bank, just this little river going all the way up to the base of a tree, and there's a little hole in the base of the tree, and I crawled up through there and went all the way up to the top, where there are all these symbols and signs that I had to decipher, and eventually I made my way through it. It took a lot of time and a lot of work. And what was in there was this thing in the midst of the darkness, this glowing light inside basically Greek columns, and 3 people sitting on a bench waiting to take their turn to go up and speak to it. And they'd sit there and they'd go up and ask it a question, it would pulse a few times, and they'd go, oh, and sit down and debate over what it had just meant by the garbage, essentially, that came out of its mouth. It was just seemingly meaningless phrases, things that sound profound but really mean nothing. And it took a lot of time for me to figure out exactly what it was, but all this thing was just this essentially thing that bleached faith. It wasn't a god. It wasn't divine in any sense or form. It just ate faith. And when you talk about these, I am and dum 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 dum, I think of what I refer to as old glowy up there in that tree trunk. And I think that's not a god. Gods wouldn't need, the divine doesn't need to communicate with us. If it exists, it's on some levels within us at all times, and it's not a god. It's not able to, it doesn't work that way. And trying to convey this is so weird and so difficult, because some things that are just are, and they're not what you think. And maybe on some levels, I can't even define it. It's something that you experience. It's not something you can even put into words. but it's not a god. Are we ready to take a quick break?
Oh, I'm enjoying it. I'm sitting here working on some electronics, just listening to it.
Okay.
Hang out in a hangout. Go ahead, Cedric.
Pause it periodically, but if you want me to just keep going, I can.
Yeah, I was just say until this gets to full inception level, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Are we going to be? Hold on. Are we going to be? Sorry. Go on.
I was just saying, I really just want to see Roy react.
Right.
Yeah. Are we going to be hearing from Roy at any point?
I think he might mutter something before dropping out in disgust and dismay. I can't remember.
Oh, poor Roy.
Jamie.
Yeah, I think I bent his little brain over a wheelbarrow and spanked it over the course of this time period.
He tries one more, and then...
Does he? Okay.
And then gives up, I think, if my memory serves me right. But the next point you make is great.
Yeah, no, and if someone's got something they want to talk about, I mean, just let us know. Really. I'm enjoying the hangout in the hangout, but I got to something on your mind.
An audience.
If
Inception.
Hangception, yes.
Yeah, no, if anybody out there watching wants to jump in and they've got a topic, just private message one of us or leave a comment. I'm still checking them periodically. So.
I'm not sure how much long it is. Shortly after Roy just runs away, or I shouldn't say runs, but after his head explodes to the point that he just falls out of the hangout, somebody else comes in immediately to change the topic away from this, and they're, of course, Christian wanting to change it, so I'm like, yeah, whatever, and left.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, this is stuff I've kicked around in my head before. I've never heard it said quite so succinctly. I'm kicking my feet in this deep ocean right now here, Shadow.
No, right on. I'm glad you're letting it out. Like I said, I don't see what you see. I follow what you follow. But it seems like a lot of other people like this being put into words. And it's something that, if that's true, then that's something that needs to get out there and be put into words and clarify for people. It helps.
But I think Shadow goes to another level as well, yeah.
I was going to say, but it's not just that, it's also, I haven't reached Shadow's conclusions, but I do sort of, I have some similarities in my road, to steal that analogy.
Right.
And that's why so many people latch on to this kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
God in the concept that you're going through. I had. I wouldn't say. I understand in the sense that you understand it.
Just continue.
But I do understand some of the concepts that are being brought up in my mind. And I've certainly considered them in terms of, unifying spirit and, these kind of concepts of universal love. And I completely agree with you that the books don't get you to them, or don't get you to the feeling of them inside you. And that's one of the big issues I have with the books, is that they give you a prescription which only leads some people to that place, and not everybody. And because
I'm not even convinced. I wonder how many of them are, connecting with Glowy and thinking that that's truly it.
The books are like the menu. The dinner is the experience that you're looking for.
Oh, John's going all guru on us.
All right, so someone just joined us, and he was watching for a while. First of all, how do you say your name? And secondly, I just wanted to join you in the conversation, so welcome. Bye, Roy. And
oh, Roy left. What a bummer. Okay.
Yeah, he did leave.
I don't know.
Okay, so how do you say your name?
There we go. That's where Roy jumped out, and then we get derailed by somebody wanting to talk about determinism because that's a safe topic for theists.
Yeah.
So that's all, folks. And let's stop broadcasting.
Yeah, brother John out on the outside was like, "Who's using my icon in there?" I was like,
Let me get this.
Quick, he's making us look like a fool. Change the subject. Change the subject.
It was a little bit of that. It was like, oh crap, I can't allow this heresy to keep going, so I'm going to jump in here and change it to something we think is safe. And I'm going to reset my sound config on that note.
Right on. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Making people think.
When did he say he's going to have a video about that stuff, about what he believes and all that?
Oh, I don't know.
He said he might do one.
Yeah, he said he might do one here pretty soon.
Though in fairness, you could probably just timestamp that hangout and it would be fine.
It seems like it'd be interesting. I mean, I don't mean to keep repeating myself. Like I say, I understand what he's saying. But
incidentally, to answer that quick, while I'm still mid-configuration change here, sometime the beginning of next month, I'm coordinating and I'm going to have Chris Mouty in there and Shannon Rocky so they can help me try to figure out how to potentially reclassify myself.
Yep, right on. Yeah, I've had a few.
You need to reclassify?
Say it again.
Do you need to reclassify?
I don't know, but I want to evaluate it. And now let me finish changing my sound config because this headset needs to be charged.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people need the label to identify themselves. Whether they would answer to that call when someone says it is a different thing. But when you think about yourself, you have a different label when you label yourself, or you can have a different label.
Yeah, like I use atheist because it's the easiest way to explain my position. But I mean, to actually explain what I believe is so much more complicated.
Exactly.
Because I mean,
basically, the way I like to look at it is that a label is a tool, not necessarily a mean of identity.
Mm-hmm. And depends on who you're talking to, if they're going to add the baggage to the terms.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's certain of my beliefs that I haven't expressed on this because it would just make the theists' heads melt. But
right.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like why I prefer. The reason I prefer something like calling myself an agnostic atheist is specifically because of my thoughts that go along with kind of what Shadow was saying. I can't say anything but I don't know, but I don't think that God's the right word for it kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so just saying atheist words, I believe in no God, can I really say that? I guess, but in the same way, it's so hard to explain.
Well, I made that clarification the other day of that label comes from a theist position.
Yes.
From any other person, from any other stance, it makes no sense. But it's only a label from a theist person in that kind of conversation. It's the only realm that it makes sense anyway.
Now, in my case, I can parse out everything that I experience as being expressions of my subconscious trying to explain things to me, so to speak. You get what I'm saying? So it's in some ways communicating with the subconscious mind, but if so, isn't the subconscious the part that would understand this in such a way that it could try and parse it out? If you get my meaning at all, this sensation of the other, or this weird feeling, whatever you want to actually consider it to be, it's this, on some levels, it's the subconscious that's trying to explain to you how you think and feel about this thing, and you're going to see things as whatever representation your conscious mind can comprehend, and that's kind of where it ends.
Hey, well, hey, Neffy. Neffy actually has an opinion on that stance you're talking about, Shadow. How's it going, man?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself, Xbox?
Been doing good.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you're doing good, too. I haven't talked to you in weeks now.
Yeah, we're getting by. Things come and things go, man. We're just dealing with them as they come.
Yep.
Oh,
I heard that. Yeah, no, Shadow, kind of what you're talking about. Neffy, actually, I bet you anything he can understand a little what you're saying and has a God view of it.
Well, I'm out of here.
Yeah, that'd be a mischaracterization anyway around it.
You have a good night, Jackie.
Bye, Jackie.
See Kevin and Jackie. Gosh, they left at the same time. This is my surprise.
Yeah. Oh, what a shock.
Yeah, the lady hasn't leaving too. Yeah, no.
I'm sorry, you said I would have a what kind of opinion?
He probably has no idea what the prior conversation was.
Yeah.
I was actually listening.
No, I mean on your God concept kind of thing, or the non-God concept.
I heard a few minutes of it.
Yeah, me and Neffy have talked about that before because we got into a discussion about immaterial and material and how he was describing immaterial
I think he was describing what he thought was some kind of entity.
Well, entity's even a mischaracterization.
Yeah.
Well, what is it then?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's more of a force that's building. Yeah, exactly. What is it?
Yeah.
It's not this self-aware sentient thing.
Well, then what is it?
That's the question. That's $1 million question.
Who
Well,
knows?
does he know? If he can't, can he
Well,
tell
that's
us
kind of the
what it is?
No, he can. He just went through describing what he feels, what he.
Well, it's kind of just the whole point of it is that it's hard to even explain or even describe because it's an experience, and it's non-sentient. It's
not self-aware, or at least
not self-aware.
Well, how did you go about discovering it or experiencing it?
Transcendental journeys.
I'm sorry? Transcendental
experience, transcendental journeys, spiritual
What do you
journeys.
mean by transcendental experience?
LSD and mushrooms.
Funny. No. Never involved, thank you very much.
Mine were in my deep dreams, actually.
I mean, people have all kinds of experiences, but I mean, I just
It's
wonder.
piercing the veil between our world and the next to go on a spiritual journey to find truth.
Well, I've found the truth, so I don't need to go there. I've already found the truth. But I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what this thing is you say. How it is. What you mean by?
Wait a minute.
What you mean by transcendental experience? That's what I would.
Love it.
I'm sorry?
So you figured out the transcendental matters without exploring them, then?
No, that's not my take on it. No.
His God's not transcendental.
No, my God is all places, all time, infinite, cannot be measured. So it makes no sense to say God is. Makes no sense to say God is here or there, really.
Really,
But,
when I was Catholic, I was told he was everywhere.
I was curious about what you mean by what transcendental experience.
You know what transcendental is, first, Nick?
Yeah,
other worlds.
Right, it transcends our world.
Yeah.
Right, I understand that.
Okay, I just want to make sure before I actually got
Right,
into
but I mean, what he means by that might not be the same thing a Hindu means by it or a Christian.
Actually, it pretty well is. It's a similar meditative technique.
Okay, so you go somewhere in your mind. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, your mind is projected out into another reality.
Projected out into another reality. Okay.
Either that, you can say that it's a matter of your subconscious mind communicating things that your conscious mind can't readily understand on its own. But, that's a matter of how you parse it out.
Yeah, that's
Whether
why
you
I
have a naturalistic view or a supernaturalist view.
Sounds a lot like Hinduism.
Or Buddhism, or many other belief systems. In this case, it was more the shamanic path.
Yeah.
So it's
There are shared influences.
Yeah.
My
It's interesting that what I found on my own does draw parallels to some of those viewpoints, though.
It's a living thing. This thing you say you
Even classifying it as living is taking a stretch because you're classifying it. Whatever it is, it's not sentient and it's not conscious yet. It's not
So
quite
it's
self-aware.
kind of like the Hindu philosophy that all things are one. Right? Is that what you're saying?
You try to go there, but I wouldn't want to.
You discovered the great ism. You know the great is.
In a manner of
Is that
speaking,
what you're trying to say?
You could put it that way, yes.
Yeah. Well, you know that Hindu philosophy is self-contradictory.
But this isn't Hindu philosophy.
That's not Hindu philosophy.
Yeah,
The thing is, you're
say that
self-realization.
Hang on, Neffy. You're trying to hang a label on something that isn't.
No, I'm not trying to hang a label. I'm trying to
Early
understand.
Hindus went out and tried to figure out what this is, and then started writing doctrines pertaining to it, perhaps. But they found it through their means. I found it through mine. And when I was walking this path, I hadn't studied Hinduism. I hadn't studied Buddhism.
Okay.
And in terms of the shamanic path, I only got 3 sentences of guidance.
Okay. So is this thing that you said?
And shout out, Nephilim does sound like he actually is trying to get to what you're saying.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay, I didn't want you to get upset thinking that.
No, I wanted to make sure that I was getting my point out there.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
This thing that you say you've discovered, are all things a part of it? Are all things it? Everything is everything it?
We are part of it. that
In
we
a
are
manner of speaking, it's like we are an expression of itself that's trying to figure out what it is through bringing our experiences back, essentially
But I mean,
what it will become.
I guess what I mean is your desk part of it, or you part of it? Is
in a manner of speaking, I
part of
suppose
it?
it is. However, what we're experiencing, I'm not going to get into that part of it. That's more woo.
So, but everything is it, right? It's all that is. Is that
I
correct?
suppose.
more like just the experience, like you say.
I suppose, in a manner of speaking, I suppose you could say that.
Well, it's
At
kind
the
of.
same time, you
You're
couldn't.
pretty unsure about what it is.
No. You could
Yeah,
call it the foundation of all things if you'd like to. But the thing is, the more you try to classify what it is, the more you take away from it what it actually is.
Sounds
This
like
is
you're
the
not
problem. Is the moment you try to.
Yeah, we're not.
Neffy,
Really, that's kind of the
Neffy,
point.
I'd say if you can't describe
Finish
it.
the sentence, man. Go ahead, Neffy. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it sounds like you're describing nothing but by trying really hard to describe something you can't describe. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If it's a real thing, then you say, well, you could describe it that way if you wanted to, alluding that it's not actually that, but could be described that way. And then, if I ask you this, and you say, well, you could describe it that way, but, it's
But
not
you'd be
exactly.
wrong, and if you'd let me get to the point, Neffy,
Can I interject?
the moment you hang on, the point is the moment you try to define it or to describe what it is, you're taking away from it.
Well, if you can't describe something, I don't have any reason to believe it exists.
There it
Fine.
is.
Yep.
Fine. And?
And end of
We
story.
don't really, it's one of those things where we don't care if you believe it or not. It's not really.
Oh, I know you don't.
Really,
I know you don't.
Neffy, it's also, I suppose, what I would say about it is that if you ask, if you're asking Shadow various things, is it this, is it this, is it this, and he's saying you could put it that way, I suppose it's also a case of the fact that we don't have good enough words and terminology and phraseology to describe what it is.
And this is
our language
this
is
is what I'm trying to get to. It's so far beyond human comprehension that once you try to define it, you are no longer talking about it.
Okay, well, I couldn't say that I could accurately describe God, but I can tell you things about
I have
God
no reason
that
to believe
that I know about God. And so at least I can just wait, now everybody's talking over me. I can describe God, but that doesn't mean I know all things about God and can describe everything about God.
Right, then I'd have.
But the problem I have is that you don't seem to be able to describe anything about this thing.
But even a little description, I have no reason to believe in it.
That's my point.
Want to know why? Want to know why we can't describe it? Because we tend to not fucking believe it, or at least most people in here don't believe it. I'm sorry, not Xbox. What fucking Shadow is saying is that he feels like that there is something out there that is not a god but cannot be described. He's not making a definitive statement. He's saying that he feels like there is something out there, but he doesn't know what it is, so he cannot describe it.
And he still self-describes as atheist because it's the easiest way to describe his position.
Well, even more so than that, it's not a God belief because it's not a God. I don't know what it is per se because it's beyond definition. So,
wow.
But it's nothing that any of us would label
That's a
as
whole
God.
lot of words used to describe to be able to not describe something you certainly have a lot of knowledge about.
He's not claiming to have knowledge about it. He's clearly saying he doesn't know.
Oh, hang on. I do have knowledge about it. But here's the thing. Having knowledge about it, it's kind of like holding on to Jell-O. It just keeps slipping through your fingers.
It sounds like to me you've discovered a place in your unconsciousness.
That may be so.
That sounds like God to me.
Like maybe you've gone somewhere that you never went before. Maybe you're recognizing in part something outside of you exists, but you don't really.
No, he's saying he goes beyond that. He's saying he goes beyond that.
Yeah.
It would be nice if you could go beyond describing it. Then it will be.
Just like what Sam just said, at the point that you just go into your unconscious, then you can come up with God.
That's a pretty wild idea, since I can
He's
describe
beyond
God, and he's the maximum
If you can
entity.
describe
that-
God, you're not talking about a God. You're talking about
I mean,
glow.
I could make up things too, man.
No, that's not true, because God can
interrupted
reveal,
everything I've said so far.
God
Yeah.
can reveal things about himself to people, and he has.
So can the flying spaghetti monster.
So,
Actually,
I mean-
no, God, no. The only thing revealed by old Glowy, which is this thing that you people are actually calling God, not what I'm describing, all it does is gives out a bunch of deepities to those that chooses to talk to. It's nonsense, and they think it's profound things, and then write ridiculous books about it, claiming what it wants and what it needs, when all it does is eat blind faith.
It's a Deepak
Well, that's funny, because that's not been the Christian experience.
It's the
That's
Deepak
not-
Chopra of the afterlife.
Yeah, that's not been my experience with God, nor anyone that I know. either.
No, that's what. Hold on, that's what I was trying to say a minute ago when you kept interrupting. He came to God within himself and saw God, what you call God. He's gone beyond that because there is a beyond that.
Well, it's not God, whatever it is.
Well,
But
of
I-
course
I-
not.
Exactly.
I think he's discovered a place in
Exactly.
his,
You hit
in
the
his-
nail on the head.
Right. Let's see what I said
Okay.
is I think he's discovered a place
Nephew.
in his mentality, not
You're not listening to me.
Nephew, the way you feel about what he believes, the way you feel about how
He doesn't listen.
Hang on, nephew, you're not listening to me, and I don't think you listen to yourself. You hit the nail on the head when you said that's not God.
Right, I understand that. I don't even believe it. I have no reason to believe what he's describing exists, except what it does sound to me is that he's.
What can we
excuse me.
relate
What it does sound like he's describing is a mental construct that he's discovered.
Actually, hang on, wait. Let me. Because here's the interesting thing. Because I referenced good old Glowy, this thing that does nothing but eat faith, with the 3 stages of the 3 different religions sitting before it. I tried to explain this to my wife at one point, and I sat her down and I walked her through a meditation, led her on a spirit journey, and her first comment was, "That's not God. That's just a construct." And I said, "Exactly. You understand." And she just looks at me funny, like, "Huh?" And
Well,
now
here's
I think
what I
years
see.
later she gets what I meant by that.
Well, here's what I see. You ridicule God and say that people can't know God or experience God, and that we don't believe in God, and that there's no such thing as God, and your magic book and all this other stuff. And then, but when I excuse me, hold on. That's the kinds of things that he said. I'm talking about him, okay? And he said, and so okay, so that's what he said, and yet I can describe God, and I can show. So you guys don't like allowing anybody who doesn't believe what you believe to talk, right?
Kind of like you, right? That's kind of like you.
Right. Okay, so if you don't allow somebody else to talk, then maybe you could have a discussion.
Nephi, I don't like people who strawman other people.
Okay, so that's the way he described it, and he was just using the language of ridicule about when I spoke of God, and so, but I say that I can describe God, and I can provide a lot of argument for God, and I can show that the Bible is the inspired word of God, and it's historically correct, and it's archaeologically correct, and that and a lot of things, and I can show miracles actually happen, and all these things, and from that God, and see, I can describe a lot of things about God, and yet you ridicule God and His Word and all this stuff, and you're completely unable to describe what you say does exist.
No, he said. Hold on, he didn't describe.
I just find that just almost unbearably
It's
ironic.
about letting other people talk.
Can I comment here? I think my head's still working.
He's describing beyond God, and he can describe parts of it, and it defines your God.
Beyond God?
Whatever this thing is, even defines your God. So
No, you know why I know that's not true? Because he says it had. I heard the conversation earlier a little while ago. He said it has no interest in communicating with humans, and if that's true, it can't be God.
No, he didn't.
It has no ability
No,
to.
he didn't say. He said God communicated with you or with people.
No,
Has
hang
no
on.
ability?
Both sides.
Well, see, I'm not hearing any evidence that it exists.
Yeah,
I just think it's a mental construct in his head.
You still have mod.
So is your God.
Well, I can prove that's not true.
Oh, please do. Because I remember the last time I talked to you, you said you had scientific proofs that the Bible's correct. You said you'd wait till after the show to present it, but I had to go to work, so I had to go to bed early. I couldn't make it. I'm ready to hear those proofs.
Well, I've shown many times that the Bible has knowledge of things in science that ancient
Okay, well, I
humans
wasn't around
not-
for that. So please do.
not only didn't know, but had no means of discovery, so he couldn't.
Then please
So
present
at
them
some point, if you're willing to let me talk about you know, what my actual view is, I might be willing to do so, but at this point I'm going to continue being strawmanned and not accurately represented.
Well, I didn't strawman anything you said, sir.
You strawmanned everything I said,
No,
and
you
Xbox
ridiculed-
misrepresented unintentionally.
No, you ridiculed everything. You ridiculed God. You ridiculed the Bible, and that's what I said you did.
Can I comment?
Oh, now I can hear you. Go for it.
Okay, sweet. I think an important distinction here between Nephilim free and Shadow is that it sounds like from your worldview, Nephilim free, you have a stake in whether or not people subscribe to your worldview. It's important to you. Whereas in Shadow's case, it sounds to me like he had a particular experience, and whether or not other people have this particular experience is, how do I put it, like, I guess less important, for lack of a better word. And is this pretty accurate?
To take it a step further, I actually say that everyone should walk their own path. I don't want anyone to follow mine. I want them to come to their own answers. But I want them to walk the path. I don't want them to just stand there and hold on to some dogma. The only way you're going to get an answer is to let go of the dogma, let go of all of your preconceptions, and just figure out what is. And that's it.
I'm not convinced it exists myself. You haven't given me reason to believe in it.
Yeah, that's what I'm picking up there from Shadow, is that's, he could, to put it bluntly, could care less.
Yeah.
Which is a distinction, pretty big distinction between your worldview and his.
Yeah, I mean, I just prefer not to have people misrepresent, because whatever it is, it's, as I said, it's not sentient, it's not self-aware, it's just there. It is what it is.
So I'm with Nephilim in that, you know, I'm skeptical about this, and I'd like to know more about it before I, you know, put forth any effort to determine if it's true or not. But what I'm getting from Shadow is that that's fine.
Yeah. It doesn't matter, and I don't want you to simply, okay, so what is it that, you know, because you get into this trap that people start asking you more and more about these kind of things, and the more you explain, the more likely it is they'll start getting put onto the path you're on, and I don't want that.
Yeah, it sounds to me like he's discovered his own sentience, or maybe the existence of his own spirit, and he's, you know, alluding or believing that it's something outside of himself.
It is.
I think he's kind of maybe struggling almost to describe an experience, a very personal, very subjective, idiosyncratic experience, and you know, we are limited by our language, so every time he's, you know, obliged to use a certain term, he's reducing it into something it isn't.
Yeah.
I think a more productive path for him would be to find God.
I did, dude. Man. I already covered that.
You didn't find him, did you?
No, man. I found the thing that people call God. It ain't no God.
No, you didn't.
Where do I look?
No, you didn't. No, you didn't find God. I know. I've met God. You didn't find him.
Describe him.
Describe him?
Describe
it. All-powerful, loving, long-suffering, compassionate, charitable, understanding, wise, capable, authoritative, moral, perfect, holy, stable, mature.
Yes, couldn't some of those things potentially be contradicting?
I could probably find another.
What does he look like when he revealed himself to you? What did you see?
I don't have to. God is not a physical thing. Scripture states he's an invisible God. He made himself visible in the flesh.
Did he speak to you through a donkey or through a burning bush?
You might want to consider walking an actual spiritual path, Nethy. You might be able to see what it actually looks like.
Why? When I found God. But there is no other spiritual path worth exploring. There's only two spiritual paths you're going to go down if you go down any.
How do you know you saw him and not the devil?
You're going to go down, you're going to find God, or you're going to find something that God created that would like to deceive you. That's what you'll find.
How do you know you saw him and not the devil? Because I always hear Christians say the devil is deceitful.
I didn't see God.
How do you know that it was God that revealed himself to you and not the devil?
Well, because when I have experienced God, oftentimes it's been because I was indulging in His holy word, and He values that very dearly. And so this is a common experience. This is one of the common experiences of Christians when Christians study the Bible with a heart toward God. they often experience the Holy Spirit because God reveals himself to people through his word, and he likes very much for people to indulge in his word. And if that God is the one that reveals himself to you while you're indulging in his holy word, it's because he's the God therein. See, that's one way. But then also, I pray only to that God, and I get answers only from that God. And the character of that God that I get is always
How do you
the
know it's
character
not the
is
devil
described
deceiving?
as
No, don't even bother siding with that,
as
please.
described by Scripture.
He's not answering that question.
I know.
And this God has also performed miracles in my life. This God is capable. He's not
How do you
incapable and silent.
How do you know?
Okay, hang on a second. Seeing as apparently Sokka is going to be left in the room for a moment, and there's an issue with somebody blocking him, I'm going to just try and toss one more thing out there. Nephi, the point of what I was saying is that truths pertaining to the divine cannot be achieved until you throw away dogmas. What you're worshiping is the words in a book, ultimately.
No.
And I had to go beyond that to try and find an answer.
No, that's not true. I worship
what
God
I'm
in
positing
spirit.
is that what is out there is so much more and so different than we can possibly comprehend.
I worship God in spirit, not in a word. I worship Him by reading His word, but when I pray and when I encounter the Holy Spirit of God, which I did this afternoon for about an hour, it's not just through like reading His Bible. I encounter God through. I worship Him in spirit because that's what He wants us to do. God says in His Word, "Be still and know that I am God." So I don't need the Bible to experience God. I can experience God anytime I wish.
And ladies and gentlemen, if I may, just on one more little point, this is why I consider most Christians to be the least spiritual people I have met in my life.
Yes. How can a Christian be the least spiritual when they're the only people on this planet that knows the real God?
Oh my God, there it is. Oh my God, there it fucking is.
That's nonsense.
Because Allah isn't the real God. Because
and you can't even describe what you.
Okay. Yeah. Can I add one little comment from the proverbial peanut gallery on this one? Hey,
I have a question.
I know he's gone, but I feel like I need to have one final response to Nephi.
Can we let Brian speak? I think he's been trying to get in.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. What I often like to do when I hear that kind of rant or whatever you want to call it from theists is to go back to say at what point were you convinced that this particular God was real and true God, and this particular text is the one that everyone ought to follow or whatever, is to say what led you to that conclusion. Almost invariably, it's a personal experience. They had some kind of experience, probably to some degree similar to the ones like Shadow is talking about, but I always wonder what gets them from there to this particular dogma, to this particular doctrine. That doesn't really make sense to me most of the time.
Yeah, I've asked him that before too. Last time I talked with him and Roy, I was saying this earlier. Like I brought up like, what's the difference between your experience and a Muslim's experience? They're like, well, the Muslims are wrong. That was what their response was. They had no better response.
What kind of baffles me is that I'm sure you're the authority of your own experience.
Of course.
I ought to implicitly believe that you had a particular experience and these certain things happened to you, but that doesn't make you the authority of the source of the experience. And what the Shadow is talking about makes more sense to me is that he says he cannot really describe it. He cannot put it into words. He's not claiming to be the authority of the experience of it. And I think that's kind of Nephilim's narrow worldview, is that he's trying to get Shadow to narrow down, like, what is the source of this? Describe it for me. Give it ontological properties and everything, because that's kind of how my worldview works, is that, we have an authoritative knowledge of where it comes from, and I'm saying I don't really get why you're so confident about that.
Now, the thing is, if somebody were to come to me and say, what's the difference between your view of whatever the heck this thing is, I guess you could say, what makes that different from like what Christians view or this and that, my answer would be I had to let go of all dogma to figure out, anything about what it was. With any of those dogmas, it was just nothing. I couldn't comprehend it with any dogmas in the way. I'd let go of all of them. And that's not an easy trick, let me tell you.
And yeah, I think it's really hard to communicate it because you are, in a sense, boxed in with language and linguistic constructs. So you're essentially forced to come up with terms like realities and worlds and spiritual journeys. And a lot of people, myself included, will want to say, well, okay, what particularly, how do I put it? What particularly is a spirit? What particularly is another reality? And I think what you're trying to say is like I'm not purposely using these words rather than others. I'm not trying to articulate something definitive and particular and specific. I just have to use these words to try to convey the experience.
Yeah, and even then, the words, it's something that the human mind can't fully, can't even really begin to comprehend. You want me to put that in the words now? Good luck.
Well, and I think one of the major problems is because when theists find an incredible need to know, like it has to be a no or it is nothing. And with this kind of concept we're discussing right now, you can't even, there's no way to know. It's kind of the whole point of that.
To be fair, to be a little more partisan, I guess, I would also assume a lot of atheists, especially hardcore atheists, or militant atheists, would have trouble with that too. Maybe scientismists would be a better word. Of you have to prove to me there's a spirituality first and all that.
I don't know.
I don't know if I've really met that many people like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that many of the really hardcore atheists that I've found would be in contradiction with that.
Now, the thing is, I've been fretting about doing this for months. I've been thinking, maybe I should come out and talk about what I actually think and what I actually believe, and the things that I hold on to that I know are dogmas, but I hold on to just the same. This kind of stuff. And there are things that, yeah, I know there are certain dogmas. I hold on to them because they're useful or because something about them I like, but I know they're dogmas. And I think there's a lot of people that hold dogmas that don't even necessarily realize that they are, like Nephi, for example.
Yeah, I think that is important. You have to know when you're using a dogma, when you've decided on something. You need to be able to know that that's a way you think and be able to work around that, or at least be able to accept that that's something that you see in that way.
Yeah, and technically speaking, when somebody's trying to get somebody to understand something or trying to explain something, trying to get somebody to, whether it be experience something or understand something or what have you, you're then, as I said, you're potentially redirecting whatever path they may be on, which is why I say, don't follow mine. Find your answers. Then we'll sit down and talk, and maybe there'll be some truths that you found that I didn't, that I think will be kind of neat. And I can then go and explore them on my own.
Which is always fun when kids are asking you questions and you have that way of thinking. You're like, oh God.
But I would
figure it out, man. Yeah.
I mean, my question to you, I'm mildly surprised that you call them dogmas, because to me you seem to be, espousing this journey of discovery, and it seems to me, however likely or not, that there could hypothetically be a bend in your road where you can change your mind about things, and therefore are they dogmas?
Well, the thing is, I have some Jungian views. There's some things pertaining to back when I was doing the hardcore into the whole shaman thing and experimenting with this and that. There are some things that I'm like, that's still unexplained. I don't know. And I hold on to these things and think, well, maybe one day they'll be explained. Maybe they won't. I don't know. But until then, I'm not going to necessarily throw them in the supernatural basket. They're just things that don't have explanations for yet. And that's how I classify most things at this point. It's like, if I don't know what caused it, I don't know what caused it. But I'm okay with not knowing.
Yeah,
I think pretending to know is where we end up stumbling.
Oh no, I don't disagree with any of that. I'm mildly intrigued that you call them dogmas.
Yeah. Well, the notion of the collective consciousness, yeah, that's one of my dogmas. The idea that, we're trying to bring back the best of us to it, whatever it may be, whatever you want to call it, so that it can be better. You know, we're making it better than it could be. You know, we're trying to. If we bring back the best of us, it will become the best it can be. That's a dogma. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but it feels right to me. It's a dogma.
What's your drive? What's your drive for that? What's your drive for the better of it? Why would you drive for it to be better?
Well, think of it in this state. Now, I don't know that when I'm saying things like we are, for all intensive purposes, building God. You know, we're making what may eventually be rightfully called a God. I don't know that that's accurate. It's how I choose to see it. It's how I choose to perceive it. It's a dogma that I hold on to, and that idea of trying to be the best person you can and learn all you can in life and bring that back. Because if that dogma is right, then cool. This is what you should do. It's why to be moral. It's why to be a good person. It's why to do your best and to try and learn and grow as a person. But that's
doesn't that come down to that?
That's a dogma.
Doesn't that come down to the whole thing of, I forget what the thing's called, but it's when you're like, well, you should choose God because if you die and there's no God, oh well. But if you die and there is a God, you're fucked.
Pascal's wager.
Pascal's wager, yeah. Isn't that just Pascal's wager, kind of what you said as a dogma?
In a manner of speaking, it is, and because you know, if I'm incorrect in that particular viewpoint of it, what you do over your course of your life doesn't matter. But if it does, I think that's the only way that it makes sense. You know, you follow what I mean by that?
Yeah, and I'm not trying to bash.
It's a motivator to do good.
Yeah, and you know I'm not trying to bash you. I'm just trying to follow. Okay, good. No, you're making sense. What you say is easily understood. Like you're not so woo into it that we can't understand you.
Oh, I've always been skeptical, especially of my own views and my own experience, because I think you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, there are some dogmas that I hold on to that I find to be somewhat useful in my life, so I hold on to them.
Right.
Do I completely agree with my own dogmas? No, I know they're dogmas. I recognize them for what they are.
Well, we were talking about fallacies the other night. That's what we came to, is that just because you commit a fallacy doesn't mean you came to a wrong conclusion. So I mean, Pascal's wager might be fine with what you're saying.
Well, I think it's a little bit neutral on it, because it's not like there's any punishment or any anything that's going to happen negative to you if it's incorrect. So who cares?
Right. Yeah, that's why I say it doesn't just automatically mean what you're saying is wrong. Or
of course, the way that Pascal wager does kind of equate to it is that if you're a shitty person, spend your life doing shitty things, and the dogma is correct, then you're not making a very good divine entity, now are you? You're polluting it. You're making it shit, and that's more so where that would be equatable, I think.
Right on. No, and I remember, I don't know, it was like 6 months or a year ago, I had first heard you talk about the Jungian stuff, and I looked into the Jung, whatever his name is, Jung, and looked into
Carl Jung.
Jung. I looked in, I actually heard about Jung about, I don't know, 3-4 years after I'd come up with the notion of collective consciousness independently.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah, because that's exactly, I didn't know what a collective consciousness even was called, because I tried Googling it, because there was a point where I saw where they had done studies on people making tools on one side of the planet, and then on the other side of the planet, someone making the identical tool. Or like when the telephone was invented, 2 people, different countries, invented telephone at the same time. There's tons of things like that happen across the world.
TV as well, I think.
Say that again.
TV as well, I think.
Yeah, TV. Yep, TV. Yeah, there was. Yeah, TV, telephone. There's something else that's a newer invention too that was like that. I can't remember what it was either. But it does make you wonder when things like that. Architecture, the same way. Certain things popped up, different sides of the planet, same time. You know, they weren't in communication.
Yeah, I don't. I can see how people get there. I don't necessarily hold with it.
See, I've only just had one weird experience in my life that's just like completely unexplained, and other than that, I'm a complete skeptic. You know, like, and I'm even skeptical of that event. It was just one of those things where my mind goes, "Well, I'm not really sure what happened there."
Right.
I had a bit of a. It was weird. I had this dream about a man coming through my front door 6 months before my my adoptive mom introduced me to her